Evening all, this is Jack. Happy Monday evening for me. We are all talking about as a channel this week, two questions that came up in the viewer's choice section. So there are two parts, and I'm going to answer the second one first, which is what genderqueer chat folks make of Andrej Pejic, I think is how you pronounce his name, which was submitted by Witherg. For those of you who don't know, there's a link down below, but Andrej is an androgynous person who is male-bodied, but he is, I use male pronouns because I don't think he stated having a preference. I don't know that much about him, beyond the fact that he's quite good looking, so I'm just going to sort of go from there. But Andrej is a male-bodied model who sort of works equally in male and female fashion shows, and wears models male and female clothing. I think he's fantastic, personally. I don't know if he'd sort of be the ideal spokesperson for the average androgynous genderqueer person, though he is very well spoken, I think. But I respect him as an artist, and I think it's really relevant and noteworthy that somebody of his sort of status is able to work openly in what can be a very gendered industry. So I think more people like him in the world would be extremely helpful. So the second question, which is one I've taken a few notes on, is what is it like being genderqueer/transgender in your city and or country? How do people deal with gender where you live, and what do you know about other societies? What is it like being genderqueer/transgender somewhere else? That was from the fabulous Saint Laura Gabriel. So, sorry, I'm speaking quietly because my housemates are asleep. I apologize. For those of you who don't know, I live sort of half and half between England and the United States. I was born in America, in the northeast New England area, and I moved around the country quite a bit as a kid, and then about a year and a half ago-ish, I came to England, southwest of England, just south of London for university, and at this point I plan on being here for another year and a half, and then hopefully immigrating here permanently, I think. So that's a bit up in the air, but at the moment I live in England, and won't be heading back to the States for a while. So, I will say this, I am more out in America with American friends, and in my old high school community in America than in England, mostly because I think I had more of a chance to. I've been sort of out as genderqueer for about 4 or 5 years. That's how long I've known, sort of. So I've had more time to discuss it and bring it up with American friends and whatnot than English. No. That's right. She's not asleep yet. Anyway. Yeah, so what I found is that being genderqueer is more sort of familiar and acceptable to Americans. I'm mostly talking about my friends, which are liberal university students, that's more sort of familiar to Americans, or something they try hard to be familiar with and to understand for the sake of being politically correct. So I found that, most people I've told in England or in America, even if they haven't understood or known the term genderqueer, they've tried very hard to understand and to educate themselves, because it would be rude. They feel it would be rude or politically incorrect not to, which is more than could be said of England, where people tend to be in my experience, tend to be much less politically correct and educated about queer issues. However, I personally feel most confident and like a normal person in my gender identity in England. This is because people call less attention to gender variance in England, I think. I think there are more sort of traditional gender roles in society. I see much less gender variance in how people dress in England. There are also things like, legally, often you have to have a title, so Mr. and Miss, in addition to your name, which isn't the case as far as I've experienced in the US. And you do have to legally change that title if you change your gender marker. So things like this are more prominent in English society, but in my experience, people have called less attention to my gender variance in England. As opposed to people feel sort of almost that they need to make a big deal out of it, more so than I often want them to in America. So, for example, I wore the same suit to 2 formal affairs in the past few years of my life. The first time was at my high school graduation in the US, and the general overall reaction was summed up by a comment I got on the Facebook picture, which was, only you would defy traditional gender boundaries in this way. And my response to that was sort of, I'm not trying to defy gender boundaries. I'm wearing something that I think I look nice in, that I wanted to wear for a formal occasion. That was it, really. I mean, and I'm aware that, to people who know me as female, really, that comes across as sort of gender rebellion and whatnot, but that was not my intention. Wore that suit, brought that across the pond. Last year, wore it to a formal ball at my university, and nobody commented on it as being out of the gender ordinary. The only reaction I really got was, oh, you look nice, or I like your outfit. Similarly, coming out experiences. When I told one of my best friends in America that I was genderqueer, just to sort of let her know, this prompted a massive existential discussion. She wanted to talk about her own sexuality. She wanted to talk about how I felt about it and how I felt I fitted into society and whatnot. When I sort of came out quite informally to my 3 housemates, who are all cisgendered females, over dinner a few weeks ago when I came out to them, the reaction was really just along the lines of, oh yeah, pass the salt. So, and then one of them mentioned, because she does psychology at university, she mentioned something about something she'd been reading about a transgender person, and she thought I might be interested in it, and that was the only discussion that's happened since. So I've found that attitude sort of makes me feel more comfortable and more like I, have a place than the alternative. And I'm sure not everybody feels the same way, but I prefer to see myself not first and foremost by my gender. And I've felt a lot of times when I've come out to people in the US that they see me first and foremost as my gender, because it is out of the ordinary. Whereas the English either are sort of not fully understanding what it is, or just not willing to pursue it, or think of it as out of the ordinary. So I feel sort of more comfortable and like my gender is less of an issue in England because of that. However, I do think people are, as I mentioned earlier, people are less politically correct in England about queer issues, which can be annoying a lot of the time. It's much more common, I think, to get homophobic jokes and stuff that you really get called out for in an American university, or even just like regular conversation. In my area, just goes over without comment. So that I would like to see sort of change. But this less PC attitude, I think, also allows me to fly under the radar, as it were, and not. It makes being genderqueer sort of a pleasant non-issue at times. And I do go on. So I think that's sort of my weird transatlantic genderqueer experience. I'm almost glad in a way that I haven't really had to deal with being genderqueer in a radically different society from the one I grew up in. I know in some societies it's really, really frowned upon to break from any kind of gender norm. So I do feel quite fortunate that I've grown up in a country where I can sort of be allowed to think about these things and openly identify as something other than the binary. And we talk a lot on this channel, about current events and about places where being genderqueer or being transgender is dangerous to this day, and something, often not an option for people to ever publicly present, which is, something that really, I would want to say that I'd like to see change during my lifetime. I'm sure it will a bit, but it's so ingrained in some cultures just as much as it is ingrained in ours that we need to make progress and be accepting of queer issues as sort of the issue of the time. So, sorry, I'm afraid I didn't really cover that last bit of the question that well, but I am rambling quite a bit, so I am going to sign off for the evening. If you have any questions, comments, experiences of your own, please share, and I will see you next week.